Good afternoon. Welcome to today's CI Tools webinar. My name is Josh Osborne and I'm the Product Manager for the CI Tools here at Central Innovation. And welcome to our weekly webinar where we talk about things to do with the CI Tools. If you've been here the last few weeks, you may know that we've just recently finished covering off the new functionality in the tools for ArchiCAD 29, and we have started going through each of the tools to show you how they work from essentially a person who's never used them before for each of the tools inside ArchiCAD 29. We're going to be continuing that series today with the cabinets tool. So we're going to look at the cabinets tool, why you might want to use that and how it works. This may span across 2 weeks of webinars, but we'll get through the main chunk of how you get started using it today. As usual, if you have any questions that you think of during this webinar, enter those in the chat panel wherever you're watching this, and I will try to catch those just before the end. If you do have any questions that you think of later on that you would like to ask, or if you have any queries about anything else to do with the tools or suggestions for future webinar topics, you can also email those through to us on nz.support@centralinnovation.com, and those will come through to our support desk, and the team there can help you out. You also may know that we are running a series of webinars today showing how the CI tools for ArchiCAD 29, what's available in the update, and also what each of the tools are. This is aimed for our international customers who maybe don't hear about us as often as our Australian and New Zealand customers are. So if you are registered for one of those, you will find out more about some more of the tools as well. There was one running directly after this webinar, so you can check that out too. But with all that out of the way, let's get started. So as I mentioned, we're going to be looking at cabinets, and we're going to be looking at it in ArchiCAD 29 specifically. The ArchiCAD 29 upgrade doesn't include any big new features for the cabinets tool, apart from a couple of bug fixes and obviously compatibility with ArchiCAD 29. We're actually currently working on some development work for the cabinets tool. So if you are interested in the cabinets tool in particular, maybe you've used it and are interested in finding out more about it, or maybe you are a long-time user of it and have some things that you would like to say about it to us. If you can think of anything like that, now would be a great time for us to hear anything like that. So if you do have any thoughts or opinions or comments about the cabinet tool that you'd like us to hear and think about, you can send those through to our support desk as well, and those will make their way through to me also. But with all that out of the way, let's get started. So the CI cabinets tool. First of all, why would you want to use the cabinets tool? So obviously inside ArchiCAD, there are a bunch of objects available for doing cabinetry. The reasons why you might want to use our cabinets tool are that we offer a large degree of flexibility inside the tool. It's a very similar tool to our doors and windows tool in that way, where the main focus of the object is providing a single object that allows you to do basically, I don't want to say any kind of cabinet, but a lot of kinds of cabinets using that one object to do most of what you want. So you essentially only ever have to pick one object and you'll be able to do whatever you need to in most cases. It's also built to allow you to add as much detail to it as you want at any point in the process. So you can start off quite basic, and then during further rounds of the design phase, essentially, you can go back into the cabinets and add more detail as you want. But you can also just place using the default settings and get a fairly good looking basic cabinet as a sort of placeholder, and then come back later and that sort of thing. So again, similar to the doors and windows tool, if you've used that one, the idea being that it will give you as much or as little detail as you want, and you can sort of take it up at any point during the process. So the way that you access the cabinets tool is from the cabinets button over here. This will be available in ArchiCAD if you have loaded the CI Tools work environment. If you haven't loaded that one up yet, just go to your Options menu, Work Environment, Apply Profile, and choose the Tools Profile 29. Applying this profile doesn't make any other changes apart from add the CI Tools to your toolbox. So if you have other changes that you've made to, say, the menus or the layout or anything like that, those won't be overwritten by the CI Tools work environment. That we just add the toolbox changes in over top of what you already have. If you want to add the tool to your toolbox manually, you can also do that by just adding it in the work environment dialog. If you're not sure how to do that, just contact us on support and they can send you a link to our documentation on how to do that. Once you have the cabinets tool available, you'll also need to have our cabinets library loaded. Whether that's an LCF or a libpack is up to what version you're using it on and whether it's a migrated project or not, but either way, the object will be the same. So going into the tool here, you're looking for this object called CI cabinet, and it has a kind of a gray render of a cabinet in 3D. If you find yourself looking at some sort of bluish cabinets that all say deprecated in front of them, it means you are in the migration legacy folder here. These are the old version of the cabinets tool from over 5 years ago, so I don't recommend using these on anything new, or in fact, on anything old, really, in most cases. The only reason you would need to use these is if you are migrating an old version project and you just don't want to touch the cabinets anymore. You want them to stay as they were. These can be used in that case, but in any case where you're wanting to do new work on cabinets, click back up on the cabinets folder in your library view here and make sure you're using the CI cabinets object. There are a couple of other objects in here as well. We've got the corner cabinet and the corner angled cabinet. Those are just exactly what they sound like. They're the same as the main cabinet, but they're for doing interior corners, either with a corner door like this or an angled corner. The CI cabinet polygon is the same as the regular cabinet, but allows you to modify the outside shape of the carcass to whatever shape you need in elevation view, that is. In floor plan view, it will still be rectangular. And the bench top is a bench top for sticking on top of your cabinet. The CI cabinet is what we all want in most cases. So I'll select this cabinet and I'll just hit OK, and we'll place it using the default settings. I'm going to put it outside just so it's easy to find when we go into 3D. There's our cabinet. And the first thing you'll want to do is make the cabinet the size that you want the cabinet to be. So we can just grab hold of a node like you would for any other element, resize it out to the size that you want. Let's say that we want it to be 2200 wide. And when you do that, the cabinet will stretch out and it will repeat the units across the length that you have. So you can see we've got 3 repeated full-size units and then a smaller one in at the end here. You can change the behavior of how this stretch works. So you can make it so that if you stretch it, it will just make one big cabinet all the way across. And if that's what you like and that sort of thing, we'll look at that later on or possibly in the next session. But for now, it will just repeat the default unit that you have in there, which is a 600 wide unit. And now we can modify this to work the way that we want. So if we have a look at the default settings for this cabinet, you can see we have legs on the cabinet with a plinth in front of them. And then on the cabinet fronts, we have an opening door with a flat panel and a recessed handle on them. And they are all showing the dashed line to indicate the opening direction and a D label to indicate that they are doors. So this is a label that's actually placed on it in 3D. So that will show in our elevation views, but we can control all of the line work and the labels and things using model view options. So you can create a 3D view that has those turned off if you don't want to see them there, but then turn them back on for your elevation views. But let's have a go at changing what is actually in our cabinets. So we've got our door fronts at the moment, and what we're going to do is we're going to change a couple of these to be something different. And the way that we do that using the cabinets tool is using the modules. So each element that we see in here, each sort of unit, is called a module in the tool, and we're going to modify some of those. So I'll switch to the 3D view here so we can see what we're doing. And from my menu at the top here, I'm going to change to the modules view here. And that will allow us to modify the modules in the cabinet. So you can see I have a sort of a preview of this set out here. You can see I have the far left item selected at the moment, but I can click on each part to choose each of those pieces. And you'll see as I select them that we are showing the width is 600 and the height is 750 here until we get to the last one where the width is 400. And that was that last bit that was left over. Um, because we resized it to something not exactly divisible by 600. So that's what's happening there. We can change the set out of these modules here as well. So we could select the second one in from the left, and we can use the split command here to split vertically into two. Now we have two pieces here on that module. So you can see in the elevation view, it's a bit easier. You can see we've got two opening doors above each other, above and below each other now. So you can use this interface to change the set out of your cabinetry. We can also modify the width here. So we could say that this unit here is actually a very slim, make that a 250. And we could say that this top unit here actually should be smaller than the one below. So we can make that 250 and that will move that as well. So you can easily manipulate the set out of the modules in your cabinet. You can also merge them back into each other, which is the opposite of splitting, by using these buttons down here. So we could choose, for instance, this module here and merge it into the one to its right by clicking this button, and it will just do that. So now we have one piece on the either side of this now. So we're down to three vertical units now. Now that we've got a set out that we want, the next thing that we can do is modify what's actually in them by moving across the tabs here. So at the moment, we're looking at the dimensions view for our modules. We click on here, we can choose the type of modules, and that determines what it sounds like. It's the type of module. So whether it's a door left, whether it's a door right, if it's double doors, if it's bins, if it's a stack of drawers or a single drawer, if it's an oven, if it's just a flat panel, if it has shelving in it, if it has a tambour door, and if it is just nothing, it's just an open shelf unit. We can choose any of these types here. So we could say that this one should have a double door, for instance. We could choose this one at the top here and say that that is a single drawer. The one at the bottom we can say is open shelves. And the one on the right we can say is an oven. So it will go through and place those all in there. So you can see in 3D, we've got our open shelves down at the bottom here. There's no shelves in them yet. We'll add those later on. We've got our double doors, our drawer at the top, and our oven there. Now, each of these types can be further modified to customize them as well. So if you select, say, the drawer, for instance, and press this button to go down to the type modification, we can choose the drawer here. We can modify the way the drawer works. So we can choose what the surfaces are, and we can define all of the dimensions of the interior parts of how that drawer will work. And we can do the same with our other types. So if I look at door double, which we're using there, you can see it's set to be a door. It's got leaves, one on the left, one on the right, and it has the label D2 on it. So we can modify those as needed, but using the default ones will let us still set up what we need. Moving across to the next tab, we have an option to choose the fronts. So the fronts are set independent of the type because you might have, say, multiple drawers and you want them all to have different fronts on them. Maybe some should be glass, some of them should be solid, something that sort of thing. So again, we can select any of our modules from the view here. So we could choose our double doors here and say that these are glass panels. And we could choose our top drawer here and say that this is a shaker panel. And it makes those changes. You can see that there without changing the rest of those items there. So we can set those all independently. And then the same again applies with the handles. So again, you can use any types of handles on any parts of them independent of what their type is and what their front is. So for instance, on our drawers, we can choose to not have recessed handles. We could change those to be a D-pull instead. And then we can also say that we actually want that to be a single D-pull in the center instead of to the sides and that sort of thing. And we can choose the set out of that and that sort of thing. And again, similar to the types and the fronts, we can modify the settings of how that works by drilling down to the full detail. We can look at the D-pull and we can define all of the dimensions here as well as the surface for it also. So you could even make multiple D-pulls that just had different surfaces or something like that. Whatever would make sense for what you're doing, it will allow you to do all of those things. So now that we've made some changes to our module, I'm just going to hit OK and we'll see what it looks like now. So you can see that all those changes that we made have happened. We've got an oven on the right here. We've got a drawer with a shaker panel on the front and a single D-pull. And on the left, we have our double doors with a glass panel on them. We've got our open shelves down at the bottom here. So you can see it's quite quick and easy to set up a essentially a single item which contains all these three units with essentially the settings that we want. And you can go down to as much detail on those as we want, or we can literally just say, I want this to be doors that are double doors, and it will just do that, sort of no questions asked. We don't have to change any other settings. Now, moving on from the modules, the next thing that you will probably want to do with cabinets is add shelves and dividers to them. So I'll go back into the settings, and clicking on the menu up at the top here, we're going to shift from modules down to shelves and dividers. And that will let us, as you can probably guess, define shelves and dividers. So we select the module that we want to work on, and then we can choose what we want to do. So we can choose what type of shelves and what type of dividers we're using. Shelves are horizontal separators, and dividers are vertical separators. So our shelf is a 15mm panel, but we have a couple of different options here. We could change to a glass shelf, and then a divider panel is a 15mm panel. Again, we could modify these like we could with the others. So we could say that this has a different surface or it's a different thickness, and the same for the shelf types. We could say that, for instance, the slats options has a different texture on them, or the slats are a different size or something like that. We're going to leave these ones as the default settings though, so we'll go with the shelves being slats and the dividers being a 15mm panel. We'll say that we want to have one shelf and also one divider, and we don't want any offsets on this, so we enter the settings that we want and then press the button here to divide them up, and you'll see that we get inside this empty shelf unit here, module here rather, we now have slats running across horizontally and a 15mm panel running vertically through there. And we can do the same with our other modules as well. So I can select the part on the left that has the opening double doors, and we can do the same. So we could say that this one should have, let's just say regular shelves in this one. We'll say that there should be 3 shelves and no dividers in this case. And let's put an offset in as well, 150. Hit the button to add those in, and you can see that those get added. So we've got our 3 shelves and then our offset last shelf as well, displayed inside there. And again, they're using completely different settings than we had over there. So these are defined by what we have selected when we add them. As you can also see, as I'm selecting items here, you can do these operations on multiple modules at once. So if you have several different modules that you want to do all the same thing, and with regards to shelves and dividers, you can do that easily just by multi-selecting them. So with these 2 selected, I can say, actually, these should have 2 shelves and 1 divider with no offset. Again, hit that button, and it will override what I had with what I've just told it to do instead. So it inserts those there. And then we can go back to 1 and 1, do the same again. So you can see those going on there. So that is how we can easily add shelves and dividers to our cabinet. And if I go back out to 3D, you can see those changes there. So the 2 shelves are added in, and if we make changes, we'll be able to see those easily. So we can go like this. And then we get our divider showing there. Now, the last thing that you might want to do with a cabinet is to make the cabinet look like it is actually doing something in the probably the kitchen that you're using it in, but in the wherever it is. And that is covered by the spaces option here. And this will allow us to fill spaces inside the cabinet with items to make it look as though it actually is being used. So I'll click on the spaces option here, and you'll see again a display of the modules here. In this case, it also separates out the shelves and dividers so that we can put different space fillers on different shelves. So it's not broken down just to the module, but it breaks all the way down to the individual spaces inside them. So what we can do is we can select a bunch of these. So if I select just the top two parts on the top left module here, you can see that the type at the moment of space filler is set to none, but we have a bunch of these available. So I can come in here and I can say, well, on the top 2 units here, I want you to fill those with wine glasses. And it will go ahead and do that for us. You can see those in elevation view there. Then we can select the bottom 2 and we can say those 2 should have stacks of bowls. It will do those for us. The drawer, we probably don't want to put anything in, but this shelf over here, we will put in some plates. And the shelf below, we will put in some spice jars. This one takes a second to place because they're randomized. There we go. So now I can hit OK. And without having to do very much work at all, I have essentially made it so that my cabinet is filled with things to make it look like it would actually be a kitchen cabinet that you might use. So we've got our wine glasses, our bowls, our plates, and our spice jars in there, and we can change the settings of all of these just like we could with the fronts and with the types as well. So with the spice jar, for instance, we can go in and we can choose what the surfaces should be they use in there, what the size of the jar is and the lid and all of that sort of thing. We can do the same with the plates, choose what they look like and how big they are and that sort of thing. Also how many are in the stack. And we have a bunch of other options available as well. So we could put in a microwave and define how that works. We could have a set of books so that you can make bookshelves, and this will randomize the size of the books and the colors on them. And you can change how all of that works here as well. So it can just make a really nice looking sort of lived in already cabinet that you don't have to do too much work to make it do what you want to do. So that is a brief introduction to the cabinets tool. Next week we will jump into some more in-depth stuff in the cabinet tool. We'll look at the model view options and how they work. We will work on making some styles ourselves, and we'll also look at the other settings that are available in the object. I'm just going to quickly pause the screen share and see if we've got any questions. So if you do have anything you wanted to ask, please enter that in the chat panel now. Okay, so we've got some questions here. Is there an option to show holes for adjustable shelves? No, there isn't. I see what you mean. So having like different holes to put the pegs in for adjustable shelves. No, there's not an option to do that at the moment, but I will add that as a feature request. I can see why you might want to do that. And then the second one is about doing a convex corner with doors on the adjacent sides. Okay, so you have 2 different doors, but they open to one module effectively. I don't think you can do that out of the box right now, because each module has its own front. However, there might be a way to make that work. I'll get in touch with you after this and just go through some of the details on how that might work, but you should be able to achieve that somehow, I think, but not using just sort of the default setup of the types and fronts. Thank you for those questions, though. It looks like that is all for us today, and we have our next webinar starting in 1 minute. So I'm going to finish up here. Thanks for coming, everyone. If you do have any suggestions or questions for next time, please send those through to nz.support@centralinnovation.com, and those will make their way to me at some stage. But aside from that, that's all from me. Next week, we will be continuing looking at each of the tools in ArchiCAD 29, and with us just finished cabinets, we will be looking. Oh, we haven't finished cabinets, sorry. We'll be looking at cabinets again next week, and then the week after that, we will look at the coverings tool. All right. Thanks for your time, everyone, and I'll see you later.